Welcome to 100 Days of Trailhead, where the tech community comes to learn Salesforce, learn tech, get inspired, and invest in ourselves. We are your trail guides, here to support you on your learning journey. We release videos weekly. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a video. In the description below, you can find links for everything we mention in this video, as well as books and resources we found useful. Visit our blog, 100daysoftrailhead.com, for other helpful Salesforce and tech content. Have you ever been in a situation where you question your ability, or question if you should get into IT or stay in an IT career? In this video, Angela Mahoney is discussing how she broke through barriers and how she overcame myths she was presented with along her journey. Angela Mahoney splits her time between her Director of Talent and Culture role with Shell Black and Executive Director of Rad Women, an organization she founded to help women learn to code. Her Salesforce journey started as an admin and grew into larger integrations across multiple industries. She founded the Portland Salesforce Developer Group, the Portland WIT Group, and Forcelandia, a conference focused on Salesforce development and architecture. Angela is also a Golden Hoodie winner and received the Salesforce Equality Award in 2019. Your quest, should you choose to take it, is to journey with us to learn how to break barriers to achieve your goals. Your quest begins now.
This is basically who I am, what I've been doing over the last 10 years. Forcelandia, that's coming up in August, so that's consuming a lot of time. I just had Kieran Jameson up and Melissa so we could do a steering committee meeting this past weekend for Rad Women that does now officially feed into Women Who Dug, because there are just so many great groups now to help all of us determine, what our next steps are in our careers and help support that. And I get really excited by that. So I'm super excited that we get to work with Women Who Dug. Women Who Dug. I called them.
You got it.
Yeah, because we want to stay definitely focused on those women that are starting to transition over from being an admin. It's kind of a niche market, but we feel that we're good at that. We want to stay with it and then appreciate anybody that helps women go along on their journey. So professionally, I do this, but I thought I'd throw in a little thing of what I do in the rest of my time. I mentioned my daughters because I'm pretty attuned and interested in what the pipeline looks like. I know there's a lot of emphasis right now, not enough women in tech, and there are programs geared towards high school students. But what I found in my research is that a lot of the girls start self-selecting out in middle school, which most people are not focused on that at this point. I have 2 middle schoolers, so this is just a particular passion point of mine. I had them up presenting with me at Texas Dream-In 2 or 3 weeks ago to start getting people interested at that age, because it's really important that we have lots of girls interested, so when they hit high school and college, they do consider technology as a platform. I kept a picture of my chicken. We've got chickens and bees and live on what I like to call a farmette, so that is kind of exciting. And then just this background, I came from a family of all women. I had a single mom that raised us and kind of said, there's nothing you can't do, get out and give it a shot. So that's our background and a little bit about who I am. That being said, I stared at this screen quite a bit when I was trying to decide what to talk about. I know when I talked with Rachel initially about a topic that wasn't technical, I wanted to present on just kind of our journeys and how we are as women and how we can support each other better. I love this topic, and then I just sat and stared and couldn't figure out where to start. This is very daunting to talk in front of peers, so I'll give it my best shot. And I decided to start with young Angela. So I think when a lot of us look at other women in tech or men in tech, we assume that people were playing video games, from the womb and interested in taking apart things and putting them back together. And that's not necessarily the case. In fact, with a lot of people I know that work in tech now, they did not have technical backgrounds. And I was definitely one of them for quite some time. So when I was little, I was just hugely interested in my cats, still am. I like to read. I was a very good clarinetist until I gave it up after college. And then I was always just interested in math, which I know is a great, it's a logic piece. So I was all about math. That being said, I never thought that I would go into anything math-oriented. I shied away from that kind of stuff because I didn't think I was smart enough. But my teachers disagreed when I was in high school and identified me for a program to help get young women interested in STEM careers, which is kind of cool. I grew up in a very rural area on the far, far west side of Portland. So while we didn't have any kind of tech clubs, and we did have a computer lab that was generally dark, we were more known for our FFA, or Future Farmers of America, programs. We did very well in those. So STEM, I just didn't know people that were going to go into that. It wasn't a part of what my life was. So sadly, the only takeaway that I can remember from that entire experience of being in this special STEM camp is, don't laugh, they had goldfish bowls on the tables that we all sat around. And I thought that was kind of the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I remember nothing else about that program because I was pretty determined. I think that I just wasn't smart enough to go into STEM. So I didn't do it at all. And I think that there are still a lot of girls in this today that feel the same way. I listened a lot to my inner voice, and I'm bringing this up because, especially through RAD and a little bit through some of the dev classes that I've participated in teaching, I hear a lot of how a lot of us tend to say we're just not good enough, we're not smart enough, we can't do it. We tend to tell ourselves things that are just simply not true. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. If you've heard of imposter syndrome, it's similar to this of everybody else knows what they're doing. We're the only ones that don't get it. And we can kind of become our own worst enemies when we're learning new things, especially the development side of the platform, because it can be a little bit tricky, right? So I wanted to go over some things that we can do to change how we're thinking about this. And it's going to sound super, super basic, but when we start having those doubts inside of our heads, if we can't get something to work out or we fail an exam, I think we've all done that, we'll have that voice. And the most important thing that we can do when we're on our journey is to notice it. And I know that sounds pretty basic, but the important thing about this is when you hear that voice, just notice it. Notice that there's something there, and recognize it, in my opinion, recognize it as your inner voice. It's not you. You're better than that, but there is a voice sometimes that's saying, well, of course you failed it. You didn't study enough, or something like that. And we have to disagree with that voice. We have to actively disagree with that voice, because if we're going to keep going, we're our best promoters. We don't want to be our best distractors. So we need to be able to notice that inner voice and disagree with it. That's not as easy as it seems, in my opinion. So some things that I've been taught to do is reframe some of the things that we say to ourselves. For example, it's easy to say like, oh man, I failed that exam. I couldn't get my trigger to execute. I can't do anything right. And that's not how we want to think about it when we're fighting these inner demons. It's more appropriate to say, for example, instead of I can't do anything right, switch it around to you can't do anything right. Because if you start saying you can't do anything right reflexively, we'll kind of say like, no, that's not true. That's I can do something right. So we can start debating ourselves and getting past that. And also, we want to make sure that if we fail, and we will, failure is a part of learning. Repeated failure is a part of learning. Just because we fail doesn't mean that we're failures. It just means we failed, and then we pick ourselves up and we keep going. So, as we're going through and hearing these things, maybe somebody didn't take a meeting, or you didn't get the job that you want. There's nothing wrong with you. It just didn't work out. That doesn't mean that you're a total failure. You can still do it. And I have to tell myself this all the time, in spite of things I accomplish. The imposter syndrome voice and inner voice is pretty strong. And so sometimes what I'll do is I'll just sit down and write down what I hear my own inner voice saying. When I hear you say, for example, oh, you're amazing, she's great, my first reaction is like, no, I'm not. So I constantly have to fight that battle. And I think a lot of us do, and don't talk about it until we get into smaller groups. But I've run across so many women that have this voice, this dialogue going on all the time, and don't want to talk about it because they don't think that anybody else is suffering from it. But in my experience with some pretty cool, accomplished women, we are all doing this to ourselves. So my recommendation is, if you're starting to feel down, if something's not working out, if you're just not making the progress that you want, write a couple of things down so that you can reframe them and re-motivate yourself. Or if I always do, like the image off to the right is Pinterest. I really like some of the motivational sayings on Pinterest. So I'll just go Google something that's a little bit more motivational for you, or for myself. Okay. So our inner voice can be very, very dominant. And I will say that mine was during my 20s when I graduated college. I took that whole STEM experience in college, and I became a Spanish major. And this is in spite of my mom giving me as a graduation gift a computer. And I won't date myself, but this is back in the days when the screen, it was a green screen with a green font. And I used my computer to write my own programs to teach myself German, because then I could go through vocabulary. So while I got an early start, and my cousin who went to the same university was a computer science major, I was not. I chose to major in Spanish because I just didn't think that I was smart enough to try computer science. And it was, the computer lab was filled with boys, so scary. I never went, and I stayed in my dorm room because I was just way too shy. So I took my great knowledge and math skills and became a Spanish major, and then moved to Chile to teach English because I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. And it, definitely it wasn't going to be technology that I was going to be involved with. I thought I would end up being an English teacher or something like that. But sometimes the cards fall in a different way. And as part of my learning while I was abroad, I decided to come back to school and do an MBA. So I applied to a few programs, and still I was more interested in international business. And again, math. I returned to math and focused on statistics and quantitative analysis to count things. I thought it would be cool. But not IT. I just wanted to go measure what people were doing. So I took that, and I got a Fulbright scholarship, which is kind of cool. It was a pretty competitive one, I was told, and I was working on forecasting models for print runs for a publishing company in Mexico City. That's really neat. And still, all of this, all of these accolades. I was student body president, and I'm telling you this because I did some cool things, but at the same time, I always thought I'm just not smart enough. I'm not smart enough for technology. It's not my field. I need to do something easier. So I stuck with market research for a couple of years. And in this trajectory, while I was working in a market research company, I was given a sales project because I spoke Spanish. So I was the only person that could actually do that, which kind of irritated me because I was a purist market researcher. But the cool thing about that was it led me to another job where I did sales analysis using Excel. I'd never heard of Salesforce, but as a consultant, I had to say, it's time for you to find a database. I don't do databases. Those are for smart people. I think you should do that. And unbeknownst to me, the company had been bought by another company that was using Salesforce. So my boss said, no, you can't quit. We'll train you on Salesforce. And that is how I got introduced to technology. So to me, I'm the quintessential accidental admin who was handed a platform and told, go learn it, figure it out so you can implement it for us. And that was in the bilingual environment. All the salespeople spoke Spanish, and we implemented on a Trio, which those don't even exist anymore. The screen was about this big, super tiny. And that was my introduction to Salesforce as a platform. And I thought it was pretty darn amazing. And this was back in 2006. So it was quite a different show back then. The interesting thing was this was in Puerto Rico, I had to stop traveling because I was pregnant with my second daughter. And I found a job in Portland at an energy efficiency company where my job was I was hired as the admin, and my job was to grow the platform and grow the team. So a developer was hired first. I was the second hire, and I needed to basically ramp up my skill set. And I remember, no joke, one of the first questions in my first couple of weeks sitting in a meeting, I asked, what's the difference between Visualforce and Apex? And I'm super embarrassed now that I actually did that, because my boss afterwards pulled me aside and said, you can't ask that question in front of people, because in theory, I was supposed to know. And that kind of, when I look back on it, that's not what I needed to know, because basically he was saying, don't ask questions. You always have to look smart and know the answer. And I think we all know in technology, that's rarely the case, that you know the answer definitively, because there's so many ways that we can solution things. But again, this was back in the day when everything was new. He wanted the team to look good. Release notes were 70 pages, and I still complain about those. I regret that to this day. Help pages, the community, none of that really existed. And as a result of my question, I was tasked with a professional goal of, okay, I need to learn the programmatic side of the platform so that I would be able to be a better team lead, because I was going to be growing that team. So my job was to work with the mentor that we had, the developer on staff, to start learning the programmatic side of the platform. So that's how I came into this side of things. So to a certain extent, this was part of the OHANA before it was the OHANA. So we had a developer group, and I know Jen's on this, and Jen was around Portland back then, where there was a user group in Portland, but there was no developer group. We didn't have a lot of the options that we have right now. So trying to learn how to develop when you don't have a lot of training options was a huge challenge, especially for those that didn't have a mentor. But like I said, I did. In those days, we actually drove up to Seattle where there was a developer group before we decided to start our own back in, I'm guessing 2008 or 9, I don't even remember, so that we could have more options to do that. And a couple of years later, we taught a course or two on JavaScript as it relates to Apex. And then I think there was a book on Apex in 10 minutes a day or something like that. So we put that together in a set of sessions to run in Portland so that we could start opening up doors for other people that wanted to learn development on the platform, because we just didn't have that many options back then. After we did that, there was the Portland Women in Tech group. We started Forcelandia about 4 years ago to give more opportunities to developers, and we have an admin developer track as well. But we wanted to really create some opportunities for people to learn to develop. And it's just one of those things of like, nobody else is doing it. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens with it. And so far, these have stuck around. Rad Woman was one of those, and I want to touch on that because as it relates to Women Who Dev group, there is just, it's a unique environment. I'm learning to be a woman on the developer side as we're trying to learn new things and pave our own ways and, find out who we are and how to be heard, because that can be a challenge sometimes. So I wanted to share some of the things I've learned and some things that I think we can all work on as we go along our developer paths, whether you're a beginning developer or getting ready to take the CETA exam. One of these is, myths that we need to start ignoring. And I'm not saying that all of you fall into this category, but in my experience reading RAD surveys, talking with our learners, talking with other people that aren't necessarily a part of RAD, but are further along in their journey, these are some things that have popped up. And the first one, and I fell victim to this quite a bit, is, do you need to be a genius to write code? Because we tend to put developers of any type on pedestals, which is not what we want to do, because coding is just another way of solving problems. And all of us can solve problems, big problems, small problems, it doesn't really matter. Coding is problem solving. There's creativity there, and it just takes the ability to keep going and going and going and not give up. And it's really easy to give up sometimes. The other myth is, I'll never catch up. I've started too late. It's not going to work out. And that could not be farther from the truth. I think mainly because nobody's ever going to be all caught up. Hopefully you all recognize that we're working in an environment that's going to change every day. New tools come out. We might have to switch languages, or another one might become more dominant, but nobody's ever fully up to speed. And there's always going to be somebody behind you, always, because people are constantly entering the platform. So can you catch up? No, because it's just not going to be possible. And that's okay to do that. Is there creativity in coding? Absolutely. So to think that you'll never be able to be a creative one, gosh, I think that we've all had those experiences when you're trying to determine, like, how are we going to sync the data? What are the needs? Which solution do we want to use to get something up and running? You have so much creativity there. So I think that some people tend to overlook it. And you can have some beautiful things. Elegant code, got so many opportunities to be creative on this platform. So it's a really creative piece. And then the nerdy culture, I think, is something, especially through RAD, through the Women in Tech groups, through Women Who Dev, we're really trying to change, because there's still that whole bro culture that exists. And while we are in an ecosystem, in my experience, that is so much more open, we still need to do our job, in my opinion, to shift that whole mentality about the nerdy culture and get more women out there, because there are so many that are going to be following after us. And anything that we can do to shift that and get more female faces out, like, Rachel and Jessica, I think you do an amazing job with marketing and getting more faces out there and creating more environments and opportunities. This is so amazing, and everybody can do, even if it's just a small part, to get a tweet out or to go show up and be present somewhere is a huge, huge thing for the next person that's like, I didn't think I could do it until I met so-and-so. I hear that so much about our RAD coaches, for example, that it's just incredibly humbling. So some more of the takeaways I have, I was going through a survey that we sent out to our RAD grads, and something that popped up far more frequently than I thought it would is how the role of confidence in our decisions to keep pursuing our developer journeys. we do get feedback that, you know, when our rad grads finish, they still don't feel able to write as much code as they want. And that's okay, because it's a long journey, but they say that their confidence has increased, and confidence is a beautiful thing to help keep us going, especially, as I mentioned before, when we all kind of think that everybody else gets it, but we don't. That's not the case. So continuing to build our confidence when we have a trigger that works, you know, execute it when your test classes are spotless, you know, sorry, not execute it, go celebrate it. I went to Fogo de Chao for a big steak when my first trigger ran correctly a few years ago because of the confidence piece of it. So I really want to make sure that everybody understands that if you don't think you get it and you think you're the only one that doesn't get it, you are in such incredible company, because everybody out there is thinking that the other person next to them has it and they're not confident. So to keep going through practice and talking with other people, everybody needs more confidence, and everybody knows more than they think they do. Other things that I saw, I highlighted one in the middle of it, is that for somebody, it was their third attempt to learn things. It's, like I say, easy to give up. I've given it up. My initial developer journey was awful. It was terrible, because I was just determined that I was not bright enough and I wasn't going to do it. And I had to keep trying and trying and trying, because there's a lot of failure involved in it. You have to have a little bit of a thick skin and get excited about trying it again and keep practicing. So we're kind of all in this same thing of, even if we're on our next level or we're 3 sorts away from taking the CTA exam, there's still something we can learn, and there's still something that we're going to mess up with. So I hope this is resonating with people, because I was just kind of struck by reading all of the surveys that we got back from people that had taken courses over the last 3 years, and how their journeys were going, and how they had to keep, you know, practicing and telling themselves to practice and share that. So this is some of the stuff that people wanted us to share with our other rad grads. If that's not enough to know that you're in good company, another thing that I recommend to help keep us going is a personal board of directors. And I'm curious if anybody has heard of that concept. And I can't see, because of it is, if people are shaking their heads. Maybe you can put in the chat window if you've heard of something like that, or you've got something like that. It's something that I heard of a few years ago. I don't have one. Okay, somebody just heard I don't have one. What I like about a personal board of directors is it's along the lines of mentoring, but in my opinion, where it differs is mentors, I think, are important. They're hugely important, but sometimes that can be a lot of pressure to put on a person, or to put on yourself, to kind of get all of your mentoring with one relationship. What I like about a personal board of directors is it's similar to how companies operate. Of, if you've worked with a not-for-profit or you're aware of what a board of directors does, it's going to be several different people that are all together focused on how this company or this organization is going to do. So it's a way to kind of have all these minds guide a company in a particular direction, and sometimes to hold them accountable. And there are varying degrees of accountability that you might want to work out if you go this route. The nice thing about it is, in my opinion, it takes some of the pressure off of a mentor relationship by dispersing, if you will, some of the information or the guidance or the mentoring that you need from other people. So what this could look like is, you might have 5 or 6 people. One might have a skill set. Actually, I'll go to the next slide in a second. But one might have a skill set that talks about, I'm really good at finances. I'm really good at testing. I'm really good at test-taking strategies for when you're going to do a certification. Somebody might be in a position that you want to be in. So the concept is, you go to different people based on, what you need to get, or where you want to go. Okay, so it's not like you have to get everybody together, once a month for a Monday board of directors meeting, but it's the concept of, you have more of a dispersed approach to talking with different people to get the information that you need, or to get, some concepts that maybe you don't have down. Is that making any sense? I just like it, because to me it seems a little bit more relaxed. I tend to get stressed out of, like, I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. So I've got, somebody said it's like what the Women Who Dev group do. I have things like that, or, a Friday morning conversation every couple of weeks with somebody, because we both work from home and we're both in a similar environment. We're both women. So it's just recognizing that you've got, these different groups that you gain information from, and to not discredit it. Just because you don't have a formal mentor relationship doesn't mean that you're not getting mentored. And it doesn't mean that you don't have these options to talk with other, great, phenomenal people that can help get you to where you want to be with a little bit of advice. So if you don't have one and you're thinking about it, wow, count the Women Who Dev group. You know, Rachel, sometimes I've, even for personal things, pinged you, Leslie, Kieran, lots of different people I will go to for different types of questions because I value their input and they are my personal board of directors to keep me going. So some options that you can think about is groups like these, or maybe somebody in your field that is farther along in their career track, or maybe you're looking at changing jobs. I can imagine as some transition over to stronger developers, you might want to get a different position. So having a personal board of director, a member that's in the position that you want, it's a great opportunity to chat with them. Somebody like older people, younger people, everybody's going to have something different. And one that I like to really highlight is somebody that's going to critique you. And I know this kind of sounds like, ooh, negative Nelly, but we don't do much of a service to ourselves if we always find people that are going to say, yes, that's a great idea. Yes, yes, yes. Because we want people that are going to poke holes in some of our theories. So we want to make sure that we've got one or two people that we feel comfortable with to the point where we can have them tell us and be able to hear, I don't think that's a good idea. Here's why. Because if we're going to make a mistake, ideally, somebody can maybe clue us in, before we make it. We don't want to avoid all mistakes, but we want to be able to have a relationship with somebody where they can give us some harder news than we want to hear, because we need to get the pluses and we need to get the minuses on our board of directors. Otherwise, we're going to steer our ship in the wrong direction. I hope that makes sense. And the final one is there's nothing wrong with knowing people that know other people, because that will help get you where you need to go. There are some articles, if you look more into this, that suggest that you find personal board of director members that can, you help them, they help you. I tend to subscribe to the belief that it's all going to work out. It all works out in the end. So I'm not such a big deal or big believer in reciprocity, because maybe you can offer me something that I can't, but I can offer somebody else. So it's all going to work out, and we're all here to help each other. I tend to not look at it as a tit for tat. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. But if we all work to answer each other's questions and to help be our board of directors, then we all collectively are going to get into stronger positions. And I think, that's my goal anyways. And that's what I believe in. Along those lines, I'll touch a little bit on allies. And I know that there's a survey going out. I do a talk on how to be a male ally, because it's, I think, important to work with men in the field of tech specifically for me, because we all want male allies, but sometimes it can be really confusing for the men to be a male ally. I borrowed this from that talk because I think it's important as another illustration of how we can be allies to each other. I've been in scenarios where I'll say like, oh, I just hate it when I say something and, my boss might not hear it, but then the man next to me says it 2 minutes later. I'm like, yeah, that's a really great idea. And I'm just sitting there frustrated thinking, I just said that. But I don't want to say anything, and I don't want to be the squeaky wheel. It's a hard thing to do. What can be nice is when these things happen, if you have a male or female ally, or you can do this yourself to be the ally to somebody, but we can all do our own, we can all make our own choices to help point out what other women are doing so that we continue to build people up. So for example, we can say, I really like what Susanna said the other day, or I think Jessica made a great point when she said this, so that we can continue to call out our female colleagues in a very non-threatening way, but we still get to illustrate what others are doing. Men can do this for us as well. Women, this is something that we can all learn to do to help get our names out there and help us all build the confidence that we need. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and I think I skipped it. The reason I'm sticking with this fishbowl theme is because it was so impactful for me. That I joined other fish. That was another fish thing. But I kind of view us, and this is a direct quote that we got from our rad grad. Hey, if you could give advice to somebody else, what would that advice be? And this person said, just keep swimming from Nemo, and eventually it will stick, because we're all, if you think about it, we're all kind of swimming in our own developer direction, regardless of where we are. But this to me really illustrates the concept of the OHANA. And, I know when I became an MVP and I got to go to the first summit, I had that total, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm standing next to so-and-so. And I was generally too scared to say anything. I wasn't the kind that would go sit down like Jessica would and say, hey, how are you? I would hide behind that potted palm that was in one of my earlier slides because it's safe there, but you don't really learn anything if you do that. So this is just a reiteration of we work with some pretty incredible, very approachable people to ask questions to. And, you know, no question is too dumb. It really isn't. Sending the code snippets, whether they're hard, whether they're easy, you know, just go ahead and do it because you've got so many great friends out here. I have my Dial a Developer friend, you know, and I've sent questions like, here, let's do a screen share. Let's hop on it. Let's just tell me where I went wrong. And I think one of the last times I did it, he just looked at the screen. He goes, I'm just going to give you 2 minutes to look at that. And then we'll never speak of this again because I'd had such a basic error, but he didn't mock me. He's just like, you'll find it. And it's the whole rubber ducky debugging philosophy that I just love. But it's nice to know that you always, regardless of who you are, you'll always have somebody that you can ask if you have any type of question. We'll definitely help you get it answered. Okay, so, and eventually it'll stick, whether it's your second time or your third time or your fourth, it's going to do that. And I think I've spoken. What is rubber ducky debugging? And I'd love it if Rachel or Jessica hop in. I looked that up because I got, actually I have it here if you can still see me. For the unicorns, the golden unicorns that we got at Trailhead DX, there's the concept of just tell me your code problems and I can help you debug, and you'll often solve your own problem. And it's the idea of when you're looking at your rubber ducky, or, you know, maybe you're Dial Developer, or, you know, you've got something, I have a dinosaur that sits behind my laptop. And the idea is you go through and you explain like, oh, you know, so here's what I wanted to do. You might go through your lines of code or your process builder, whatever you're working on, like, here's what it's supposed to do here, 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 here. It's the idea of slowing it down and talking to your rubber ducky to debug what the issue is before you ask somebody else, because we generally will have it within us to solve our own problems if we just sit down and try one more time and not get frustrated. I don't know, Rachel or Jessica, if you want to add something else to it, but that was my big takeaway of, you know, slowly explain it to your duck.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. And I was putting in chat, I'm just curious, how many of you have ever told any friend or family member a problem that you're going through? It doesn't have to have anything to do with tech. It can be personal. It can be anything. It could be with a kid. It could be with a spouse. It could be with a sibling. It doesn't matter. And, you know, then by the time you're done explaining this issue, you go, oh, I know this. I know what my answer is. Thank you for listening.
2 days ago, I transposed numbers on an invoice. And I'm like, Kirsch, I was like, I'm 90 cents off. Why am I 90 cents off? I transposed numbers.
Yeah.
So that's the same philosophy with code. You tell this rubber duck, or you can tell Astro, or you can tell Cody, whatever your favorite thing is, inanimate object. I mean, you know, you can choose a human being. That's totally fine too, but they're not often there, you know, when you really need them sometimes. So, you know, it's great to have that inanimate object, just explain it. And then by the time you're done, oftentimes you've already solved it.
And that's why we start giving you guys ducks if you want them.
Yeah, that's why you guys have gotten a lot of ducks.
I think it's genius. We've all done it. Or you might dial the phone, and by the time the other person's answer, you're like, I already figured it out. How you doing? I really like that entire concept, and it, you know, it speaks to the OHANA. So if you don't have your ducky and you have a person like Jessica or Rachel said, I can't remember, you know, keep with it, because I just want to go back to you're smarter than you think. You're more capable, because we all have that inner voice that's saying, oh, I just can't get it. I need some help on it, and we don't. Okay, so moving on. Like I said at the beginning, I hate talking about myself. I'm the introvert that likes to be behind the potted tree or the potted palm. But I think we all have stories that other people can learn from, and I can't even tell you how much I've learned from other people where they will share something of like, you know, oh, I made this mistake. I can't believe it, because I tend to think I'm the only one that makes mistakes. We all do. It's nice to hear when other people have, you know, challengers, or they got nervous before they spoke, or they flubbed a presentation, or, you know, you deleted that data from production before you had saved it, something like that. we've all done that, and learning from those stories to see that we're all human has been hugely, hugely valuable to me. And everybody has something to add, no matter what you think. I guarantee you, you've done something that somebody else hasn't, and your experience is going to be really valuable. I always encourage people to submit for Dreamforce, and I've heard so many times, no, I don't have anything to say. I haven't done anything cool. And that's not the case for two reasons. One, that's your inner voice probably saying the wrong thing. You have done something cool. But also, there's always going to be somebody, that started yesterday or more recently than you, that's going to find something that you've done valuable. So I really, really encourage you to sit back and think, what can I share? Even if it's not that exciting, that's okay. We don't always have to share. I participated in NASA's rocket bursting off. Not many people do that, and that's okay. We're all doing good things every single day that somebody else can learn from. So please, please consider sharing it somehow, whether it's on a call like this. I don't know who's scheduled for the next one in August. These kind of calls are a great way to go share information that you have that's going to be valuable for somebody. You probably all have user groups. Yeah, what is not exciting to you is exciting to others. That is very, very true. When I hear what other groups are doing in their orgs, I'm like, holy cow, will you please share that? I'm like, everybody's doing it. Not the case. It's just not the case. So think about it. If you have a user groups are always looking for content. Developer groups are always looking for content. If you're on the more beginner side of development, that's okay. There's going to be somebody else there that's still going to want to hear what you want to talk about, even if it's an intro to DX or something like that. Or Dreamforce. The call for papers, for sessions is open. You have, I think, one more week, if I'm not mistaken. So please consider submitting, especially because I want to see more female faces up on the stages, specifically in the dev zone. I don't think that there are enough. I know Salesforce thinks they're making strides, but gosh, we have room to grow there. If you're too nervous to speak alone, grab a partner or two, do a panel, have a co-presenter. Find somebody that's more senior than you and see if they'll present with you. Or if you're more of a senior developer, grab somebody who's new and help, build up that confidence that they've got as well. Because we just have lots of, in the grand scheme of things, I think kind of easy ways to help build up our community. And it's going to be our job to continue to do that so that we can pave the way. If you don't have daughters, pave them for the rest of us, our nieces, anybody that's going to be following in our footsteps, or even somebody that might be older than us but is still starting their developer journey. They have questions and they want to see faces like theirs up there doing the same things. If you like to travel, I plunked up some of the events I've spoken at. There are lots of opportunities to go, even if it's just a half-hour session, share your knowledge. So I highly encourage that. All right. So the last one, and I think I spoke really quickly, is this is one of my favorite sayings, and I think it's particularly appropriate for us. But a bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not on the branch, but on her own wings. And I think that as women in technology, in a still male-dominated field, it's important to remember that we've got excellent, excellent wings to support ourselves. And if we blow it, we have the ability within ourselves, in spite of what our inner voice says, to keep going. So I keep this posted in my office because I know that I have my own wings. And it reminds me of a saying that I heard about 5 or 6 years ago at the Women in Tech event at the beginning of Dreamforce. It's the jump and grow your wings on the way down. It's something like that. And that actually inspired me to quit my job. This is being recorded, but I don't think my old boss will do that because he sent me to Dreamforce. But it was one of those, we just need to take that jump, take that leap, and we'll figure it out. And we will figure it out. And then figure out then what is in our own fishbowl. So I bring it back to the fish because that's kind of what impacted me as a child when I decided not to go into technology, which is where I ended up anyways, because it's a great place to be. And I want to make sure that I'm available if anybody has questions, concerns, like, oh, I just can't get it. If I don't know the answer, I'd love to hook you up with somebody else. I know we have rad coaches on the call. We've got people that have been speaking back in other opportunities. And it's just such a fantastic group of women to help support ourselves. It's I'm in awe, I'll admit, of Rachel and Jessica for what you've been able to accomplish in getting the group up and going, because you're all over the place, and the enthusiasm that you have for helping other women, I think, is unparalleled in the Salesforce environment. And I'm so grateful for everything that you all do to keep us going. And I think that's all I've got, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
That was so sweet.
Yes, thank you.
It really was. And, you know, we do it for the same reason you do it. We want to help other women, and we want to encourage other women to get out there and, you know that they can. And really seriously, tweet your accomplishments to us. Put it in the community. This is, yeah, we'll echo that for sure. But it's also to help you guys get used to, because women historically don't say their accomplishments out loud, and it gets you used to what's referred to as a humble brag. So
you need to get past that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was like one of my big deals with 100 Days of Code. It wasn't just because I wanted you guys to code for 100 days and like, because like you guys rocked it, I'm going to have to bring up the rules and make it a little bit harder next time. But it wasn't just about that. It was about you guys tweeting. Like Nadina killed it. Like she tweeted every day. But it was really about you guys saying, hey, look, you know, I did this today. I built something. I just got a great job, or I was promoted at work, or I was certified. That's really what it was about. It wasn't just about the 100 Days of Code, even though that was important. It was also about your confidence.
And with that, we're at the end. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our new weekly tech and career-focused videos. Did Angela provide a tip to help you overcome one or more of your barriers? What parts of her story resonated with you? Comment below. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you've made it to this point, we want to take an opportunity to say thank you. Since you stayed with us, here's a bonus. You are not the only one. You are not alone. It is so easy to feel like everyone else gets it or knows what they're doing. It is easy to feel like they have it all figured out. But that's simply not true, especially in our changing field. Thank you for spending time with us. Please like and subscribe to our channel because we share weekly content to support you on your tech and Salesforce learning journey. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss a new video. We also handpick these videos which we recommend you watch next. Connect with us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and on 100daysoftrailhead.com, all of which are listed below. Thank you for learning with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.